Hello, everyone. I'm Ariela Mortkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH. SVIVAH is about creating a more nourishing communal faith experience for Jewish women, where we define both Jewish and women very broadly. If you want to be with us, we want you to be with us and welcome. We love that we are multi-generational and diverse in our backgrounds and our affiliations. It makes when we come together so much richer and so much more profound. And we come together in celebration and support of women and our strengths and our unique ways of walking through the world. HerTorah is a program of SVIVAH under the direction of the fantastic Rabbanit Elisa Sperling that is dedicated to bringing together our diverse community of women in community with one another through our shared foundational texts, where our lived experience and what we bring into the room elevates both our learning of the texts that we share and our learning with and from one another. It's a beautiful way to meet and engage with people who we might not otherwise get to know in a very unique and special way. And it's actually really phenomenal to see the group of educators and scholars and leaders who bring us together around our HerTorah table. I want to give a special thanks to those who make HerTorah possible. First and foremost, obviously, to Rabbanit Elisa Sperling for her consistent and constant and amazing thoughtfulness and creativity in building these beautiful opportunities for us to learn with and from each other. Next, Yeshivat Maharat, thank you for your partnership in raising the bar for excellence in Torah scholarship and elevating women's voices. And a big thanks to the Aviv and Covenant Foundations for their faith in HerTorah to create a unique way of learning together in community. Usually, HerTorah is something that we do in the before times in person or over Zoom. We're taking a little bit of a departure from that this month of Elul in advance of the high holidays, because let's face it, it's August. I have no idea where anybody is. I don't even know where I am much of this month, either looking for shoes for back to school or packing up from summer vacation or all of the above. But we wanted to make sure that we remembered that it's this month of preparation when Rosh Hashanah is going to come as a surprise to all of us. So we decided to take this month and use it as an opportunity to bring such a beautiful, in my mind's eye, I see the roster of list of educators and scholars who we have coming to your video screen and inbox this month. Just this amazing group of very different, very passionate and committed and thoughtful leaders and scholars who we've asked to kind of just share what this month is what that experience of this month is like for them, how they're thinking about the new year, what they're bringing into the new year, and what they might want us to take with us into the new year too. I would love, before I introduce the amazing human who's joining me today, I want to encourage all of you to take a second and go to our website, svivah.org, and sign up for our mailing list so that you can make sure to have all of these phenomenal educators pop into your inbox all month long. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, but we really hope that you take advantage of the diversity of voices. Everyone has such a beautiful, different perspective on this month and this new year, and it just, the collection of all of it is overwhelmingly powerful, and really lets each one of us kind of tune into a piece that really is resonant. So without further ado, I get to really say thank you to Rabbi Jessy Dressin for being here today. Thank you so much for coming and making time for this. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to having a chance to talk with you all month long.
So I'm so happy to be here. I feel like my hero in life is Mr. Rogers. May his memory be for a blessing. And as I mentioned, my dog wants to participate, but he tends to quiet down when I go into a different room. So since I know you'll be able to clip the part of me where I move from here to there, I'm gonna change physically my location, if that's okay with you, so that we can move forward with our conversation. And Kofi can stay on the other side of the video mechitza. It's like changing your sweater or your shoes, right? Now I've got a different background, and
I'm waiting for a whole house tour. This is amazing.
You can have it.
I really am kind of excited to have your dog join us. It won't be the first pet who's come to, hear a bit of Torah. So
yes, he likes to participate in meetings, and he has a lot to say, but sometimes it's nice, you know, in that step up, step back model, that he steps back in certain conversations.
I'm like, I think I want to come to the meetings where he is the forefront.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not when you're like presenting to a program officer at a local foundation or something of this sort.
You know, I'm sure he's very, very thoughtful and selective about the meetings that he shows up to. Anyway, I'm going to sing your praises for a second. And if he joins in, I'm sure he loves you in a very different capacity, but I get to show you off for a second too. Rabbi Jessy is the Senior Director of Jewish Education for Repair the World, which works to bring all of us into helping the world be a more just and better place. Your bio is going to be part of this video, so everybody can read it. But the piece of your bio that I love the most, not the most, but what stuck with me this time of year in particular, was how you framed your own personal mantra and your commitment to being a Kli Kodesh, being someone who works to make Judaism and holiness accessible to everyone else. That you strive to make Judaism meaningful, that you strive to remind all of us that being in community is a priority of our Judaism, and that you work to see a world that is made more just for everyone. And for me, reading those three pieces and priorities totally stuck with like the Tshuva Tefillah, and stuck at the whole element of you know, all of these three pieces of the Rosh Hashanah liturgy that mimic that so beautifully. And I'm really just thankful for you coming and lending your personal view of Judaism and community building and community purpose, because I find it so reaffirming, especially in days that feel like we all have so much work to do. There is it's endless. And it's amazing to see and know someone like you who brings so much passion and energy and an unwillingness to give up until that work is done. So thank you for being here today. I really am grateful.
Thank you for such kind words. It's really my blessing. You know, two things I just want to say real quickly. One is the three goals of Judaism, which you gave me credit for outlining clearly, but really I heard Rabbi Shai Held speak about three goals of Judaism on the Judaism Unbound episode. Shai's probably been on multiple of them at this point, but one of them. And I was like, wow, that's everything. That's all of it. But you just gave me this, and I say it daily. I think people know that I believe Judaism has three goals, of which you just referenced them in this most beautiful way. You just gave me the high holiday filter for that, which is a true gift. And the notion of clay, like a vessel, you know, I was talking to my husband this weekend, and I had to officiate at a funeral, and it was for people that are in my community. It's for people that I have been with for many life cycles, and this was actually the second funeral in the family in this month of Elul. Wow. And we were talking when I got home from the funeral, and it was a Sunday, and I was exhausted, and I was like, I can't believe tomorrow's already Monday. And my husband was like, it's just amazing the comfort you bring to people. And he's like, I really don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how in a time where everybody is just doing their best to take care of themselves, like how you always do it. And, you know, he's always the one that hears me when I pick up the phone call from the funeral home, or, you know, and he's one of the few people that sees, like, you know, we're watching preseason football and I'm like, oh, it's the funeral home. And, you know, you just kind of code switch pretty quickly in that space. And I have really always felt like this service, this shlichut of having the honor to be someone that gets to be with people in these most profound moments of life, but really with the hope of giving like consistent meaning in every one of those mundane moments that happens in between, is that of being a vessel. Like, you can't hold on to all of it if you're going to try and be someone that holds people, space, whatever that is. So the vessel imagery really like gives me a huge gift, because when I channel like what is my role, when I stand under the chuppah with a wedding couple and I call on the cosmos of the universe to bless them and to transform the universe based on their love, like you can't hold on to any of that. That's just,
huge
through you. And yet I realize that's just not something that everybody does. Like it's something that I feel really blessed to be able to do. But I also find over time, people ask me about how I do it, enough for me to realize that, those of us who have our approach to community as vessels, that's all you are, is a vessel, and to be able to hold what you hold and, pass off what you need to.
I think this year has been, for those of us who connect to and seek out those who are spiritual leaders and spiritual guides and spiritual holders, I think this year has been a little bit more of a glimpse behind the curtain than usual, where we get to, see different rooms in your house, meet your pet, see your partners and kids and whoever, family walking in the background. There's just more of your wholeness, like who you are as a whole, rather than up on the bima or up in the pulpit in your traditional leadership positions. And I think, and I'm hoping that the rest of us are reminded of how hard this job is, how insanely hard this job has been this entire year, and the simultaneous gift and choice to be that vessel is a really profound and challenging one. And I hope that we remember to show our gratitude, because our need has been great. Our need has been very overwhelming. But I think that I really hope that we remember to show gratitude and to remember that your humanity in all of this is important too, because all of you have been so phenomenal. I feel there's a piece of me that felt even selfish just asking all of these incredible women leaders to come and give more, please. Give more of yourself, give more to us, let us take more from you. It's been very self-serving, and you're giving your talent and skills and innate abilities to all of us. But I'm hoping that there's something that is refilling all of your cups. I really do. I really, really do, because we need you. We really need you.
I don't know if everyone feels this way, but just to share, I think, and this lends it so nicely to Elul and to cycles and to coming up on a Shemitah year, which is a 7th year, which is a sabbatical year. I'm a diehard music fan, and rhythm is everything. And my Jewish story and my journey to like the thickening and deepening of my own Jewishness and my own desire to like be a teacher and to be like a convener of our community and our people is that when we move in cycles, or in agriculture what we would consider closed systems, like it's regenerative, it's restorative. The mushrooms that kind of grow up from the decay in a forest are the same kind of ooey gooey vessels that then put into a next cycle and round of growth. So I mean, we talked a little bit about the vessel, but look, there are definitely times where you're like, really? And I'm a community rabbi, so everyone has my cell phone number. Most of the people in my community are my friends, and it will be one of my closest friends that texts me at 11:30 at night and is like, can we talk about Israel and Palestine? Because like I just need to talk to you. And I'll be like, Cloney, like I love you, and can we talk about this not at 11:30 at night? When, by the way, I've already probably tried to like go to sleep. And so I think like, I'm a Reform rabbi and a secular Jew in a lot of ways, though I know that sounds weird. And but I really believe deeply in boundaries and in like the role that boundaries play in the Jewish tradition conversation. And like drawing boundaries when you pride yourself on the flexibility and porous nature of what boundaries can be most of the time, still leaves you like training your friends to say, you know, when we're out at a concert, it would be great for you not to tell all the strangers around us I'm a rabbi, because someone's going to end up talking to me and I just want to listen to the music. But it's usually your closest friends you have to do that work with in my role, where I'm not like on a specific pulpit, or my congregation is not defined by the walls of a building or the name of a congregation.
That's crazy. It's like the doctor at the whatever party where it's like, here, can I show you this pimple, right?
Yep. But you can't say no to them because
No,
you're the rabbi.
Totally can't.
We could go down. That'll be for our next conversation. I've got great stories, not to mention the like strength that you have to have when you see the disappointment in someone's eyes because they feel like they offended you. And like rabbis are not like, we are not set up to be like some tier of holiness, like greater than like every average human being. But what
do you mean? That's not true.
But you get a seed like this. So like, you know, all of a sudden, like you offended the rabbi and that person is like going home and they're thinking about it. And you're like, I just don't want to talk about this on like Saturday night at 11 p.m. when I'm out for the first time in a year and a half with my friends. Yes. I think there's your realness. There's your, you know, if you want to support your spiritual leaders, don't interrupt them when they're at a concert. That's really
exactly. Just in general, just make sure. What hat are you wearing today? Rabbi or regular?
I mean, I could put it on at any moment, but like, it's really great when you're like, today I will have my glitter hat on with my dancing shoes. And if I get to listen to the music, I'll wake up tomorrow ready to, you know, all of the things.
Just tell everybody it's sermon research. You know, I need to focus. My kavanah, my intention needs to be focused completely. This is going to be in your high holidays.
I really interact with like the great spirit beyond. Please, I need to hear that bass line.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you got out because that's always fun and enjoyable. And thank you for showing up and holding your community in all the gazillion different ways. I am going to glean from you, and I hope that's okay. I wanted to ask you to come today and share with us what this Elul is looking like and feeling like for you. I think that everybody, the idea of preparing again for this high holiday that is just a constant question mark of what it's going to look like and feel like in reflecting on a year that's gone by. I know that you're just an incredibly thoughtful person, and I'm wondering what you're experiencing this Elul and what pieces of it are you taking with you into the new year?
Yeah, such a great question, because Elul is actually one of those times of year where I feel my daily practice super grounded in actual practice. And what I mean is I move through the world with like deeply internalized Jewish time. And I am somebody that like when the sun sets on Friday night, like it is Shabbos, and it could look very different each week, what that looks like. And often is not expressed outwardly as much as it is impacting me and kind of informing my pace and my time and my actions internally. But Elul, you know, I've found over the last few years that I've done a daily practice that I put on social media. Posting on social media about anything that has to do with like your spiritual life is a really interesting decision because one, I know that's where the majority of the people that know me and see me and want to hear certain things about how I think about the world like go to, and yet at the same time, I think social media is so self-serving and just reinforcing this like self as center that I'm vastly worried about. And that Judaism and Jewish ideas really comes to counteract, which is one of the things I love about Judaism is its disruptive nature to like rampant individualism and capitalism as the only option for how to live in the world. And so for the past few years, I've done this like daily Elul Instagram post. And this year I was like, I'm not doing it because one, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to like do it. If I can't miss a day, like that's not an option for me. And so it was like 3 days before Rosh Chodesh, before the beginning of the month of Elul. And I was out and I saw a friend of mine who's not Jewish and who is like, you know, if you center circles out of my like regular sphere. And she said, are you going to do that again this year? Like, I love your posts. And I wasn't actually sure I was going to do it. And then I was like, it has become this practice. It's become this like thing. And for me, it has been, I don't work as a rabbi in a synagogue. I don't have the same experience of many of my colleagues at this time of year, where they have to think about how to produce meaning making during a period of time. And so it feels to me like I have this great invitation to actually be able to make each day a point of warm up and reflection, because it's very easy for me not to anticipate the high holidays in the same way that I would if I had other sort of deliverables as a rabbi. So it causes me to ask, like, what do I personally want from this time? And how do I want to prepare myself? And so the notion of reflection and reconnection, and then specifically this year, knowing that the beginning of this holiday season is the beginning of a sabbatical year, of a Shemitah year, there's a whole bunch of different questions. And this particular Elul, I have been kind of amazed by the intersection of being through a pandemic enough that we are able to start reflecting, even though we are not through it, and coming up on a year where we are supposed to really reconsider what it is that we want to fundamentally change or realign or restructure, and set ourselves up for a cycle of that, and knowing that like the 7-year cycle is about that. It takes time, and it takes time. And the request of the year, which is like, how do we sustain ourselves? How do we release from the considerations of what's supposed to be and what's expected? And then I think about that on the heels of this pandemic, where we proved a whole bunch of things that are supposed to be a certain way. If you can't do it that way, you can still move forward. You can still thrive. There's a heck of a lot of challenge and adversity in that. But I think that there's something about this Elul that's like asking us the same questions every year. Looking back, what did you feel like was growth? Where did you miss the mark? Preparing to like welcome a new year with some sort of spiritual connections and commitments and intentions of how you want to grow differently. And then to invite the notion that like growth has an aspect of it that you can't control, and you have to like let just go. But then the invitation to us is to take notice of what volunteers itself, like what comes up in its place, and the blessing that should be abundant and bountiful and get us ready for the next cycle, in which we kind of like put our heads back down and start to do things as we become accustomed to. And I don't know, I'm not sure, but I think for me, when I recognize that the power of marking time in this way gives me a sense of transition and a sense of connectedness and a sense of spiritual like practice. And I'm sitting on my couch. I didn't go to a shul to do that. I didn't go into the prayer book necessarily to do that, but I have this structure that invites me to do that. And so like my work is to try and give other people a sense of what their structure could be, right? Like, what does Jewish time offer? What are the themes? What are the questions? And just move through the rhythm of time. We could all thicken our fabric of Jewishness just by that journey alone. And so I think for me to like go through it, but also to think about how do we invite others into it, is something I encounter every year, but this year it's kind of like pronounced.
I appreciate that so much. I think that the overlay of the idea that this is a Shemitah year, a sabbatical year, which still boggles my mind that this is like a real farming practice in play in modern day Israel. It's something that's so ancient and so present, and the idea of using it as a spiritual overlay too to this year, for me, it makes this Elul more significant. Like there's more work to do, more thought, more introspection necessary. And hearing you talk about the idea of like sitting back and letting something go and grow based on what we've put in thus far, and taking reassurance from the idea that there's a blessing, that abundance will come without our interference. I think that's, personally hard for me, that actually takes real faith. that I can let go, and I don't have to necessarily be a proactive piece of the outcome, and that whatever I've put in thus far will still yield abundance. And really thinking about that, especially in the midst of this pandemic, and like how weird and perhaps wonderful the timing is. Like, if the Shemitah year had been last year, I don't think that it would have at all. We, like, as much as all of us kind of yelled like, okay, great, this is the timeout, this is the, like, let's just sit and be, we worked so hard to maintain normalcy. We every piece of every aspect of our lives was trying to figure out the workaround, the, how do we reframe, redo, so that we can sustain ourselves. I don't think we could have handled a Shemitah year, and I'm really curious if what that's going to look like, if we're going to allow ourselves to really have that timeout, that maybe that all that work that we put in this year of trying to kind of maintain our status quo, maybe that was an opportunity for more of a lesson of like, no, there's still more to let go. There's still more to leave be. I don't know. I really appreciate this call to stop and to note time and make it important and significant.
Can I say one thing though?
Yes, please.
Again, this is like my Reform rabbi recognizing that sometimes this sounds a little more machmir or like traditional than people expect from me, which is, part of the magic. My teacher, Rabbi Levy of blessed memory, would say it's not just about what we're stopping. Just like Shabbat is not just about what you do not do. And once you stop, then you open up an entire world of exploring what you can do, what does come out, what does grow, and you take note of it and you learn from the wisdom of seeing something that you approach differently because you stopped or you paused something that you're hardwired towards. And, I think it's so important to say, there's different entry points for Jewish engagement and Jewish learning and wisdom acquisition, right? And I think that Dayenu, if we press pause on things, if we stop, good enough. But what about what we could learn from that? What about if this 7th year was about taking note? It's like an extended Elul, taking note of what did we produce from this year to the last? What do we produce from the Shemitah to the last? This is the first time in my life where I feel like my connectedness to Jewish rhythm and time has been bookended by the memories and the commitments and the things that I learned during the last 7th year and the 6 years that have happened since, and what I'm thinking about. And if for nothing else, I feel like the last Shemitah cycle, I was like, Jessy, your growth, your learning, your commitments, your rhythm. And now I look forward to my thoughts about the work that I do and the way that I engage folks, and everything I'm teaching this year, I've committed to doing through a lens of Shemitah, every single one. And if you look at, say, a 10 series class, the last 3 are about starting to look forward, starting to think about what did I take from this stop?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? Because that's the cyclical nature. You said before about you hope that those of us who serve others feel our cups filled. And when you're disrupting the linear mentality of how I live in the world, and you're seeing yourself in a cyclical space, and if you're an educator, you're spiraling towards something, you're not just spinning in circles or spinning your wheels, that is generative. That gives you these moments to say, I've looked back, I've looked forward, and I'm thinking about how I step into presence right now. So it's not just, don't just stop everything, although if you do, great, but take note of what you learn. And look, I'm in Zoom meetings from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., sometimes till 8 p.m. My entire life is dictated by a calendar and by dings and bings and all that kind of stuff. it's limited how you can do it. So it's also about doing something that just gives you a little bit of space, right? Like I put a reading hour on my calendar this year, and I'm going to be reading a series of books. I love reading, but I fall asleep reading every night if I wait till the evening, right? Like a few things that are about what you do that you have freed up space to do that you would not have justified prioritizing.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's really a really powerful, powerful takeaway. Thank you. I love that Elul is this wake-up call. I don't take enough time for it in my life, and I appreciate that it's built in, that it's really built in.
Me too.
Wow. With that, I'm curious if you started talking about Elul and its practices for you. Like I see how you're mapping out this year, but the idea of a consistent practice in any way, is there an element of Elul that is something that unique that you save for this month or do, or something that any of us could kind of glob onto and take away from whatever your practice might be and inspire us a little?
Well, I created an Elul reflection guide. I do it every year in my sketchbook. I map out the month of Elul and I make myself out. I'll send you a picture of the one I have so far, and I can send you a link to the prompts that I wrote that I'm following and that I've shared.
Yes, please.
In my organization and with folks who ask a question like the one you just asked me. And I'll be honest, some days I forget. And so then I have to do 2 days, right? Like, so it is imperfect, and imperfection is like so important for us and such a gift of what we can accept in a Shemitah year, right? If we don't find ourselves comfortable enough to accept it in any year, which we should. I can share that with you. And I think that for me, it is about making time and making space every day. I know as a inheritor of the tradition of Judaism that there are 3 opportunities every day for me to stop and to pause and to offer my gratitudes and to put out my calls to the universe for things that I'm in need of or that people in my community are in need of. And I don't take advantage of those necessarily in like a fixed format. But for Elul, I do say you can find 2 minutes every day. And if you make yourself a physical like rubric of the calendar, you're talking about a box that's like 1 inch by 1.5 inches, and you could color it or you could write 3 words. Like, you don't have to do that much, but the power for it to shift something in you, to like say, even in these 3 minutes, like I'm similar to if you were to stop and take a breath and you could feel like your body shift and you could feel like you're like just like general like self more present. It's like easy and attainable, and also can be really meaningful. Like what can pop out of that 1 by 1.5 inch box, and then the power of doing that every day for a period of time, and then to see it build. Like you start with these boxes and then all of a sudden, you know, it's filled, and then it's Rosh Hashanah, right? And then you're just getting there. That's one thing. Another thing that I just love about this time of year is the call to hear the shofar. Like, so many people love the shofar service and they think you only get to listen to it during the high holidays, but right, you could listen to it every day if you were in a position to do so. So in the month of Elul. So, you know, I have one colleague, Rabbi Ariana Katz, who she just brings her shofar wherever she goes. So we were in a meeting together 2 weeks ago, and at the end of it, she just blew the shofar. And I don't have that much confidence in my shofar blowing yet, or like the chutzpah to just walk around with it. I also don't have like a really good strap to like bring my shofar with me wherever I go. Those are all excuses. I'll work on them next Elul. But I do think that, like, what would it look like to be able to create more opportunities for people to hear the shofar, and to, like, you know, the volunteer fire department is across the street from my house. Like, I hear the call when they need folks to show up. And that's what I imagine it was like to hear the shofar. And, you know, I live in Pikesville, Maryland. It's not crazy to think that I might hear a shofar in the distance on any given day. But when I happen upon it, I realize how much I wish like there were more ways to, like, in the moment, in real time, even if on Zoom, like, hear the call of the shofar. because I think it's a sound we associate with a certain time of year and certain seasons. And that's exactly what the whole tradition is trying to get us to do, get ourselves grounded in the seasons and reflect on how we've changed in the seasons between, you know, when we were in this season last and where we want to be in the season to come.
I think more than ever when we've just spent a year of blurs days, right? Where like everything just flowed. No one could know what day it was because everything looked so similar. This like overwhelming, like every kind of marking of time, this audible call, this need to kind of just change how we structure our year with a whole new cycle of Shemitah starting, the idea of this pause of Elul leading up to a marking of time, all of it is such a stark contrast to the blurs days that we've been in for so long that I think it feels like there's so much more energy to it, so much more like real palpable pieces of it. I don't think I even realized how much I needed that shakeup. And you're right, hearing a shofar, like I'm hearing it in my head, hearing it now would it just would jostle me so much more than I think it has even in the past, just because of the monotony and the overwhelming like sameness of everything that we've been in for so long. I appreciate that tremendously. I'm going to think about that when I hear shofar, because I will ashamedly admit that I have not yet heard shofar this Elul either.
Well, if I didn't move downstairs to get away from the dog, I would have had my shofar next to me and I would have attempted to blow it in all of its imperfection, but I left it upstairs. So
next time, another excuses. I'll interview you next Elul and you'll be like, here, I have my shofar first.
I'm still not good at it. That's not the responsibility. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to hear it when it's blown.
It's real. First of all, can you say more about that? Because I love that. And that really was reaffirming, because we tried really hard. We bought a shofar last year because we didn't know where we were going to hear it. And it's really hard.
One of my colleagues is a trumpet player. So, you know, she's really good at that. And it's just great. I've also got this trumpet player. He just joined us. You know, I think, look, this is the perfect time for the dog to come in and now bark over what I'm going to say, because you know, I similarly, let's go, Fee. I similarly like had a friend when she traveled to Israel bring me home a shofar, like sent her with some shekels, and I thought like I'd be good at blowing it, and I've had it now for 6 years, and like I don't get any better. Like I just don't. Like it's imperfect, but for me, I think what is so amazing about the tradition of shofar is that the mitzvah, the sacred invitation, is to hear it, and so like. I think, and I've been reflecting on it the past few days about, I've now blown the shofar for my colleagues a couple of times over the past few days, and it's not great. And one time I even spilled coffee on myself right before I did it. And then I still was like, I spilled coffee on myself, but I'm going to blow the shofar. Like, we're imperfect, right? Like, and I think as like a teacher and somebody that is like, you know, rabbis are not different than normal people, right? But we can model things and we can think about what it means to model imperfection. And so for me, it's like, I just need to get a sound out of it. And like, if I can get a sound out of it, then people can hear it. And it may not be as beautiful as the Tekiah Gedola that like my colleague, Rachel, would blow, but that's not where the mitzvah is. That's not where the invitation is. The invitation is not to be the person that blows the shofar and produces the sound. It's to be when a sound is produced to hear the call. And I feel like that's just so true of what it means to be a rabbi, to be a community organizer, to be like a teacher. I don't know, am I getting it right? I'm a Reform rabbi who is a woman who doesn't work in a synagogue, who is trying to serve the Jewish people at a time where everyone hopes things are going to return to something like it was, but we all know you can't go back to Egypt and you must move forward. And I'm sitting here being like, I don't know if it's good enough. I don't know if the people that I stand with under the chuppah are going to like bring their families into the fold of Judaism, but I do know that my job is to help people access it. So like produce some sound that they can hear and that they can choose if they hear it in like their kishkas and their depths enough to maybe step closer towards. And I don't know, it's just so rich and beautiful, and also makes me feel a lot better about myself when I try and blow the shofar and I have to try 3 times before I even get like just a mediocre sound.
Rabbi Jessy, first of all, Kofi, you're right. everything that Rabbi Jessy has just shared with us needs to be amplified and just affirmed in all the ways. If barking is it, so be it. I hope that everyone hears the Torah that you shared today. It's going to be sitting with me this year, and I think for a long while after. Thank you for just touching on all of these things that are something that I needed to hear this year. So I'm really glad that I'm sitting with you, this message of reflection and time and letting things be, and hoping that the time of a break is actually something that yields something for all of us, and the gift of imperfection and all of these pieces. Thank you. I'm taking them with me into this new year. And I'm just, thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving more. I'm really grateful to you, and I hope that your community and this marking of time does refill your cup. And I want to take a moment to say thank you just for being here, and wish you a Shana Tova, and may it be sweet and healthy and full of blessing and good things to you and your family, and to Kofi. And to everybody who's listening, I hope that you've enjoyed Rabbi Jessy as much as I have, and that you'll take a minute and stay tuned for more amazing leaders like Rabbi Jessy, who are going to come and share their wisdom and thoughtfulness moving into this new year. You can go to our website, SVIVAH.org, and sign up so that we can send you all of them into your inbox and make this Elul something that really feels full, really feels full. Thank you so much for being here. Shana Tova to you all.
Thank you.